Snake oil sales in the Texas House. Let's get dialed in. Hello and welcome to Texas Talkin, the only place where we call out the lies no one else will touch. Tonight, we turn our attention to the Texas House of Representatives, a so-called Republican-led body that managed to pull off one of the slickest political con jobs we've seen in a while. It's the kind of move that makes you say, wow, they really think we're not paying attention. Spoiler alert, we are. Here's what happened. Last week, the Republican-led Texas House proudly announced that they've finally banned Democrat chairs from House committees. Sounds great, right? It's the kind of bold, principled move grassroots conservatives like you and I have been demanding for years. The crowd goes wild, the press releases practically write themselves, and Republican lawmakers go home to their districts ready to take a victory lap. But hold on. If you actually look at the rules they passed, you'll find something very interesting, or should I say, very deceptive. Because while they're bragging to their constituents about banning Democrats from committee chair positions, they slipped in a little clause mandating vice chair positions for, you guessed it, Democrats. So they didn't really ban Democrats from wielding unearned influence. They just gave them a different title. It's like taking a rotten apple, slapping a different sticker on it, and calling it fresh produce. Think about it. The vice chair is still in a position of influence, still shaping policy, still sitting at the table. The only thing that's changed is the nameplate. It's a bait and switch so obvious, you'd think they'd at least try to make it look more convincing. But no, they're counting on you not noticing the difference between a chair and a vice chair. They think you're stupid. And frankly, it's insulting. Imagine going to a steakhouse, ordering a filet, and then getting served a tofu burger. Oh, but it's plant-based protein. No thanks. This isn't what we signed up for, and it's not what Texas voters want. And here's the kicker. These same Republicans are now running around their districts, patting themselves on the back, telling voters, we stood up to the Democrats. No, you didn't. You stood up, adjusted their chair, and handed them a new seat at the table. The Democrats aren't mad about this either. They voted for it. And they're laughing their asses off at us. Democrats held a press conference last week lauding this new rules package, banning them from committee chair positions as a major win. Ask yourself a simple question. Why would Democrats vote to strip away their own power? They wouldn't. They get to keep their influence while Republicans get to lie about it to their voters. It's a win-win. Unless, of course, you're a conservative expecting results. The truth is, this isn't about fairness or bipartisanship. It's about keeping the establishment happy while trying to trick grassroots conservatives into thinking we've won. It's cynical, it's deceptive, and it's exactly the kind of nonsense that makes people distrust politicians in the first place. So, to the Republican leaders in the Texas House, stop playing games. Voters didn't elect you to give Democrats consolation prizes for being stone cold losers in Texas elections. We elected you to deliver on your promises. And if you think we're not paying attention, think again. The people of Texas deserve better than this kind of smoke and mirrors. If you're going to claim victory, make sure it's actually a victory, not just a carefully rebranded and repackaged defeat. And that, my friends, is what really happened in Austin last week. And joining us now is a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. Chris Salcedo is the host of the Chris Salcedo Show on Newsmax, which airs weekdays at 3 o'clock Central. You can find his nationally syndicated morning radio show Monday through Friday at 7 o'clock Central, and you can find his podcast, The Salcedo Storm, on the Texas Scorecard lineup. Frankly, folks, we have no idea how this man manages to find the time for us, but here he is again on Texas Talkin. Chris, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Shilo, it's good to talk with you, man. Thank you for the kind introduction. You were like, a man who needs no introduction. I was like really excited. I'm like, who's he talking about? I'm looking around. Oh, it's me. Okay.
It's you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, hey, we banned Democrat chairs last week in the Texas House, and we should all be celebrating, right?
Right. Yeah, this is, I got to tell you, Shilo, when I saw what Dusty the Democrat did, I was like, wow, this guy and the Charlie Garens and the Jared Pattersons and the Jeff Leaches of the world, there is no length, Cole Hefners of the world, there's no length they won't go to make sure Democrats have more power than they earned at the ballot box. For folks who don't know, this rules package was adopted by the Texas House, by the way, admitted today by Dusty Burrows himself. It was the Obama parliamentarian who wrote up these rules. And the rules basically said, yes, let's ban Democrat chairs. So, and only Republicans will be Republican chairs so long as Republicans are in the majority, I should say. But let's take power away from the chairmanships and give it to a system of subcommittees and vice chairs, and let's make them all mandated Democrats. And that's exactly what they did.
So when I was on your fine radio program last month, you and I were celebrating, and rightfully so, the end of the Phelan regime. Let me ask you this, Chris. Do you think that Dusty Burrows may be as bad or perhaps even worse than Dade Phelan as Speaker? And if so, in what ways?
Well, Democrat Dusty definitely is worse in that he is more intelligent than Dade Phelan ever was. And
probably more sober, I might venture to guess.
Yes. Then there's that too. But I can't independently verify this. I've just heard that the Karl Roves, the Joe Strausses, the Dennis Bonins of the world, the establishment lefties who call themselves Republicans, Governor Rick Perry, not very happy with Dade Phelan. They looked at the guy saying, man, we've been keeping up this sophistry. We've been keeping up the Charlie Garen and Joe Strauss Gang of 11 coup since 2009. And these dumb conservatives and these dumb Republican voters of ours have been buying it since 2009. But then here came Dade Phelan, who wasn't, like I said, the sharpest tool in the shed, and ham-handedly exposed the scam to where I and so many other people were able to expose him and show his treachery, and it led to 15 fake Republicans losing their gigs in the primary. And I can't independently verify this, but these left-wingers who pretend to be Republicans, they all blame Dade Phelan and his incompetence and his lust for power overriding his good sense and his temperament for all of this.
So not only is Phelan under fire from guys like you and I, it sounds to me like the establishment wants to take him behind the tool shed as well. They're not happy with him.
Well, they already did. Remember when there was no appetite to back Dade Phelan for Speaker, he already lost. Those who were trying to desperately give Democrats power and authority in the Texas House, they're like, we can't achieve the mission with this guy, and they threw him overboard. And then they had to find another guy who was a fake Republican who would move heaven and earth to deliver for socialists, to service socialists. And they found Dusty. And frankly, we learned something with this rules package, Shilo. He's smarter than Dade Phelan.
And to that point, this rules package, when it was passed last week, right? It was brought to the floor, and then Representative Jared Patterson, who I would lump into that same crowd of people you just referenced, called the previous question, which in parliamentary procedure ends all debate and brings it to a vote, so that other representatives weren't able to offer amended rules to the package, perhaps preventing Democrats from having vice chairmanships. It sounds to me, Chris, like this was a very highly orchestrated and well planned out unfolding.
Yes, it was. It was orchestrated, planned with Gene Wu and the Democrats and the people pretending that they're Republicans. And you know what? Jared Patterson, just so we're clear, Jared Patterson is a very left-wing, a very insecure man, just like Gene Wu. Gene Wu blocks me on social media because he's a communist sympathizer, and we call him out for that.
Patterson blocked me as well.
Yeah. So Gene Wu blocked me, but so did Jared Patterson, because Patterson is just as sensitive, or the kind of guy who cannot handle criticism. So he just, like in the fashion of a good old fashioned communist, he just stops,
just shuts it down.
Just shuts it down. So Gene Wu and Jared Patterson ideologically cut from the same cloth. Gene Wu was much smarter than Jared Patterson. And the reason I'm going through this explanation, Jared Patterson is not among these fake Republicans who are in the smart column, like Dusty Burrows, Democrat Dusty. He's in the Dade Phelan column, the not too gifted. He doesn't have a leg to stand on. He can't defend what he does to his own constituents. So he blocks criticism, hoping he can insulate from himself from criticism for what he's doing. But sadly, the word is still getting out on him. If I was going to say somebody was in trouble already in the primary season, it's Jared Patterson.
Well, that's fantastic news. What happened after this was no surprise to me, and I'm absolutely sure it was no surprise to you. I knew what they were gearing up for was a deception campaign. A snake oil sales deception campaign that's already been launched. There were mass text messages, as an example, sent out last week. I got one here in the Beaumont area for Dade Phelan, championing himself as having banned Democrat chairs. So how do we combat this shoddy bill of goods that voters are being sold, Chris? Matt Shaheen even sent out an X post today talking about how, well, are there any other, to Abraham George, are there any other legislative priorities you want us to vote no on?
Yeah. And talk about, see, Mr. Shaheen's cynicism there is predicated on the fact that, yes, they know they adhered to the letter of the law. We got rid of Democrat chairs, but that's where they stop. What everybody needs to know and understand is, yes, they got rid of Democrat chairs, but then they disempowered Republican chairmen and then empowered Democrat subcommittee chairmen and vice chairs. That's what they did in toto. And so Mr. Shaheen's cynical post toward Abraham George is predicated on the fact that there's a sufficient number of Texas Republicans and the conservative majority who don't know what has transpired here. And thanks to your fine program, thanks to what we do on the Salcedo show, and the Attorney General and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, everybody knows the game. Shilo, I said it when they did this. Everything they're doing from now on, they're not going to be able to stab us in the back. If they're going to stab us, they have to do it in the chest. And that's what Mr. Shaheen and Democrat Dusty and Jared Patterson and Cole Hefner, that's what they're going to be doing all session long. We're not going to allow them to get away with it. We have enough real Republicans in the House to out them, and they're not going to be able to get away with it anymore.
And they're going to take this, as we both know, to the campaign trail, again, announcing that they've finally banned Democrat chairs, a misinformation campaign. So to me, Chris, the marching orders are very clear for you, for me, for anybody else who wants the truth exposed. And that is, we need to do our level best to make sure that every voter in our district who votes in the Republican primary is fully aware of this deception and the lies of omission that are going on here.
Yeah, Democrat chairs will not be the mantra that is the primary season after this legislative session. They're planning on doing it. They're planning on running that gambit.
Yes.
But it's not going to work because the only people who will be playing that are the mainstream press, which has no credibility in covering this issue whatsoever. They have allowed since 2009 the Democrats to run a shadow government in the Texas House, and with some of them have full knowledge, others had no clue what was going on. So the fact that Democrat Dusty and these left-wing Republicans think they're going to be running on banning Democrat chairs, that's not going to be the narrative. I have news for them. That will not be the narrative coming up in the primary. They don't know what's going to be hitting them. And as a matter of fact, many of these people will be gone before we even reach the primary because they'll be censured and thrown out off the Republican ticket.
Rule 44, baby.
Rule 44.
Yes, sir. Folks, you can find Chris Salcedo, of course, on Newsmax weekdays at 3:00 Central. You can hear him on his nationally syndicated radio program at 7:00 Central, Monday through Friday. And of course, on the Texas Scorecard lineup is the Salcedo Storm podcast. Chris, thank you for coming on again.
Shilo, it's always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas. Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.